It's October and we're starting fresh with some new projects, and I also plan to finish up a couple that have been cut out for a while. The weather has turned a bit cooler, and so I am finally getting inspired to make this blouse that I cut out back in, I think, February or March. It's been far too warm to wear a long sleeve blouse over the summer. I've been wearing my short sleeve blouses and getting a lot of use out of those, which is good. But I love the sleeves on this so much, and I've been dying to make it. I hope it lives up to my vision. So I think I'm going to start with that and see how far we get. Guess what I did? I once again failed to check the size before I cut out my pattern. Technically, this was the first time I did that because I cut this one out before I cut out the gray scoop neck blouse. I've got to do better about checking the sizes on my vintage patterns. And I have confirmed I did not leave any extra seam allowance on any of my pieces. I cut them exactly to size 14. Yeah. I think I can fudge it a bit by making my seam allowances smaller. So we're gonna try it and see what we end up with. This pattern is so confusing to me. So the instructions, like all 1940s vintage pattern instructions, are very densely packed into a small space. They can fit it all on one sheet of paper. It's very thrifty. I could not make sense of the illustrations. I read over the instructions and referred to the illustrations multiple times before attempting to do what they told me to do, because that's how I usually approach patterns that I'm unfamiliar with and have anything more complicated than sew shoulder seams, sew side seams, insert a sleeve, you know, hem and you're done. And this pattern with the hidden button fly front detail is complicated. I've never done anything like this before, and I wanted to do it right while also attempting to make the blouse a little bit roomier so that will actually fit me. It is intended, as you can see from the illustration, to be a loose fitting blouse, so I have that going for me. And I did measure across the pieces at the waist, and they should fit me. I have chosen, as part of my efforts to make it fit me, to simply ignore the tucks in the back and front of the blouse, because the bottom is always going to get tucked into a skirt or pair of pants anyway. So the fact that the tucks aren't there is not going to be obvious. Like, you can't see them in any of the illustrations on the front of the pattern envelope anyway. So here are the relevant instructions. Like I said, I'm not doing that tuck. I did put the darts in, and I tried it on before I stitched them and ironed them down, and they're a little high and they are pointing kind of up more than they need to for me, but I'm going to go with their original placement because I think it will be fine. Now, so this facing and fly portion was making just no sense to me whatsoever. I could not picture what any of this was talking about. It even has arrows pointing to the specific parts, and I could not make heads or tails of it until I actually did it. I got this part. That stitching from here to here, I could understand, no problem. What I did, to give myself extra room, was move the stitching line over about 3/8 of an inch So I made this seam allowance as narrow as I could. And I think that's going to work. And then I did understand the turning under and pressing these two along the lines marked on the pattern for the fold. And once I had done that, this instruction actually makes sense because I can see now what it's doing. This is the folded back fly end facing. It also took me forever to figure out where the buttonholes were marked because on the other side, the buttons are marked. So it's like it has to have the buttonholes marked, right? But they are not marked on the right front piece because the buttons do not go into this piece. They go into the fly and facing. But I still could not find the buttonhole markings anywhere on here until I pulled out the other front piece for the version of the blouse that doesn't have the fly front. So this version right here. And then I saw, oh, there are tiny, very faint marked buttonholes. It's very subtle. And then I was able to find them on this piece as well. So I have marked them on the inside here, and then they'll be underneath, and then I will be stitching along here to enclose the front just on the other side of the buttonholes. So this is all very complex and nerve-wracking. And it's nerve-wracking because I had so little extra fabric and I've already cut it out into additional collars for buttoning into a dress or sweater. So most of the scraps of cutting out this blouse no longer exist. So I have no room to make mistakes. Okay, I have successfully completed the hidden button fly. I haven't opened the buttonholes yet, but I will do that later. Now, to attach the side seams, and to make the seams as tiny as possible, given that I cut this at a size 14 without giving myself any extra seam allowance, I am going to offset and stitch a 1/4 inch away from this top edge, which is the front, and 1/2 inch away from the bottom edge, which is the back. And then I will fold this over, fold it over again, and top stitch down and do a flat felled seam. Normally you would sew a flat felled seam with a normal seam allowance or the pattern and trim one side before folding over the other side and encasing the raw edges that way. So I'm just offsetting so I don't have to trim away and waste fabric that I could actually use in the blouse itself. There's only 2 seams, so I'm getting at most like 1/2 inch extra. But every little bit helps, and I am counting on this being a loose-fitting blouse in the first place. Here's hoping. Okay, it's been a few days, but I have been working bit by bit on this cream blouse, and I have actually finally done enough that I can try it on and just check if it's going to fit. No. No, it isn't. I can't even get it to meet over my bust without straining. Oh, this is so sad. I might actually cry. I was so looking forward to this blouse, and it's not gonna fit. And even if I made it fit, it would be tight and unflattering. It's supposed to be loose. I'm so sad about this. Okay, I might be able to save this. I do have this much scrap fabric left. Technically, I also have these pieces, which are currently cut out to be removable collars for future wardrobe variation. But I think I can get somewhere with just this. Let's see. If I cut straight up the center back and piece in basically a wedge, I might be able to get enough extra width to make this blouse fit. Or I might destroy it. It's one of the two. Okay, hold on. What if I made it a yoked back and then pieced in a full panel? That way I won't have to taper it as much, and I can still get width at the bust area, not just at the waist. Okay, we're gonna go with a yoked back and try to make it look intentional. I'm going to bring out this pattern because it has a back yoke, and I'm going to use this piece to determine how far down I want to cut my top back piece. Okay, yes, that will work, and the back might end up looking kind of cute. Do a little inverted box pleat there. Okay, the bust darts are definitely in a weird place, and I'm just gonna be okay with it, because it's too late to change them now. I've already done flat filled seams. I'm not changing it. It's fine. Okay. It's not as loose as I think the pattern calls for, and certainly not as loose as I would like, but it at least fits, and that's what we're going for. And besides, this blouse is going to be all about the sleeves. Who cares what's going on here, right? As long as it fits. As long as it fits. Okay. I may need to make the collar larger, which I think I can do just by sewing a much smaller seam allowance all the way around. And I think that will be okay. I think it will be okay. We will definitely be checking the size of all vintage patterns before cutting them out from here going forward. And yes, that should have been a given. I don't know what past Chelsea was doing. She wasn't checking bust measurements, that's for sure. I think I thought, I'm usually a 14 in modern sizing, so a size 14 in vintage sizing should work just fine. No, it doesn't. Okay, coming in from editing mode, it is now December. The tree's up, but not yet decorated. So we're not too far into December, but still. I just wanted to pop in really quick and explain, because there's a good 2-week gap in my vlog for this month. And that is because I stopped working on my vintage items and started working on Halloween costumes. And if you saw my Halloween video, you know I had a lot on my plate. I did film a lot of that sewing, but I've decided to put it in a separate video. So that explains the 2-week gap. And there's also a bit of a tone shift here in a minute, which you will see, and past Chelsea will explain what was going on there. So enjoy. I'm not sure how to start this section. This is going to be a long session of ranting and rambling, probably. So if you want to skip back to the sewing, I'll put a timestamp on the screen for where you should skip to. I have been running myself ragged lately, and fortunately that period is over. There were just 3 kind of back-to-back, somewhat overlapping situations that required a lot of my attention and time, and I had to deal with all of them largely alone, just because of the nature of being a stay-at-home parent and my husband working full-time. And I don't really want to get into what the situations were. They're all past. And I'm fine, but it was a hard stretch the last 3 weeks. It's just been... There was one annoying administrative thing that's finally taken care of. There was one somewhat serious house thing that has also been resolved, but required a lot of mostly laundry. But it was a lot. It was a lot of laundry in a very short space of time. And it's good though, because it did force me to clean out my closet and clean out my kids' closet, and I found some clothes for my kids that I had gathered, purchased, been gifted, that were too big at the time, but for them to grow into, and they have now grown into them, and it's the correct season for them to wear. So that was really good timing that I found those clothing items before they do outgrow them. And then there was a fun thing, which was we had a dinner party last night, and even though I knew about this dinner party weeks in advance, I did not really start cleaning the house until 2 days ago, and that's on me. And I had some help with cleaning the house. That wasn't a solo endeavor, but it was a lot of mental load. So I'm exhausted. I was exhausted. I had a good nap this morning after I brought my son to preschool, and I'm on the recovery end now, I think, but as you can probably tell, I did not put I didn't put any effort into my appearance this morning, other than the red lipstick, which is just because it makes me feel better to wear it, so I'm wearing it, even though it's leaving a lipstick imprint on my coffee mug, but I could rant for a while about why I don't like fall. I don't think I'm going to right now. Just suffice to say, it's not my season. I don't like it. I'm cold all the time, and then I dress for the cold, and then it gets hot, and then I'm boiling. Okay. I said I wasn't gonna rant about fall. So, yeah, like I said, I've been running myself ragged. Do not recommend, even though it was for good reasons. All 3 of those things needed to be done. Okay, maybe not the dinner party, but the cleaning for the dinner party needed to be done. And they're done now, but I need to, going forward, take really good care of myself in the coming weeks. Make sure I am getting enough sleep, enough water, enough nutrition. But there's one other area where I need to take care of myself, and that is creatively, because I have not been sewing while working on all of these projects. Mostly, I haven't sewn anything in the last 3 days, which to a normal person, that might sound like a silly statement, but sewing does bring me joy, and it calms something in me. I'm not exactly sure what. I think I physically need a creative output, and when I don't have it, I start to feel very stifled and uneasy. So I think it's just the act of making something with my hands and my brain that grounds me and helps me feel more alive. I don't know. Also, it is a week until Halloween, so I do really need to get going on the Halloween costumes. But of course I don't want to work on any of that right now, because none of that counts for my year of sewing vintage, because these are not vintage costumes. So I really do want to make or finish one of the garments on my vintage sewing list so that I can have something completed for October. That would be nice. It's not necessary, like the Halloween costumes are necessary. And there isn't a real deadline, like the Halloween costumes have a real deadline. But there is a garment that would accomplish two things. It would check off a garment on my vintage sewing list, and it would potentially cure my fall blues, because it's definitely a cold weather garment, and I've been looking forward to having it since I bought the fabric back in July, but the weather hasn't been right to make or wear it yet. But since it's been getting colder, the weather is now appropriate. So I want to make it real bad. Oh, but it would also accomplish more than that, because it would probably, very likely, get me out of my brain funk of being in a state of exhaustion and pushing through it for 3 days straight. Once again, do not recommend. And it could also give me a lot of momentum and motivation to continue the Halloween costumes and get through a lot of the work that needs to be done on those. Sometimes taking a break from the main deadline-driven project and working on something else can help with that deadline-driven project. And it's a circle skirt, so it should be really easy and fast, right? Right? So I think I'm going to do that, rather than slog through the next steps of whichever Halloween costume I choose to work on. I think I am going to stop, make a circle skirt, and wear it. That will make me really happy. So it's worth it. Okay, here we go. Okay, it was my intention to use this actual vintage circle skirt pattern from 1948 to make my plaid circle skirt. However, there are two problems with that idea. The first is that it is not my size. I have not had a 26-inch waist in many years. And the second and much bigger problem is that I do not have all the pieces. Using vintage patterns can be a crapshoot sometimes. So we are supposed to have a front, a back, and then I guess these are the waistband pieces, although how? I don't understand. What I do have is a quarter circle, sort of, with this piece pinned as an extension, I guess. And then I don't know what's going on with this, but neither of these are the original pattern pieces. I can tell because they are a different color of tissue paper, and they don't have any of the stamped markings that the actual pattern pieces do. So this is number 3, and this somehow is a number 4. Don't ask me how. But these are the original waistband pieces, and I still do not understand how they are supposed to come up with a 26-inch waist, but I am just not going to use any of this, and I'm going to look up a circle skirt tutorial online. I have ironed my fabric, and I have it laid out here, folded across the length. This is the fold from selvage to selvage. And I have just over 4 yards, so that should get me a nice big circle skirt. And I'm just gonna get the longest length I can get from my yardage, and add pockets and a waistband. Easy peasy, right? I matched up the edges with the lines in the plaid, so hopefully when I cut it out, they will line up perfectly. There was a bit of trial and error with this process. The fabric was too long to fit on my cutting table, even folded in half, so I had the excess hanging off the left side here. Now, I thought I wanted to get the longest skirt possible, so I started by measuring the fabric from selvage to selvage, and my plan was to cut 2 half circles with that as the radius. I realized later that this would give me a floor-length skirt, which was not what I was going for. And I also failed to ensure that there was actually enough fabric to do this, which there wasn't. But I did correctly calculate the radius needed for my waist measurement, so that's something. A while back, or as my daughter would say, a couple whiles ago, I bought a giant 48-inch long ruler on a whim because I saw it in the hardware store and I decided I needed a 4-foot-long straight edge in case of emergency. But now, when I actually needed it, of course, I could not find it. So instead, I pinned the end of my measuring tape to the center point, which turned out not to be the center, as I am about to realize, and moved it around in a semicircle to mark where I needed to cut. Okay, did not think that through. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay. I moved the center point over by 1 stripe and started marking a shorter radius. This ended up being better because the length of the skirt was now going to be mid-calf, which is actually what I wanted. You can't see this at all, but it's great. Yes. Oh, I already love it. Now to cut pockets and a waistband. I had plenty of fabric left over from the corners below the half circles, so I could get nice big pockets. Well, that has inexplicably worn me out. I need to go sit down and maybe do some video editing. My limbs are just tired. So I'm going to listen to my body, and I'm going to rest, take a break, and come at this again probably tomorrow.
Just for completeness sake, here's the final bias linen slip I finally finished, which brings my total up to 5 camisoles and 5 full slips.
Well, I would say that rest did me good. I am feeling much better today. See? Effort. And while the black cardigan over the black dress might be overkill, it is giving me a chance to wear my new sweater chain, and it both brings me a lot of joy and makes me feel like a grandma simultaneously. I think that's where I'm going to be living all next year, so better get used to it now. Anyway, I have decided that I want to serge the edges of all of my pieces before I sew them together. And that means I'm going to change my serger thread back to black. We're going with a theme today. Okay, so I just changed the thread in my serger, looked back at my pieces on the table, and realized the only things that need to be serged are the edges of the pockets. Because I cut out the side seams of the skirt itself on the selvage, and the waistline is going to be enclosed in the waistband, and the hem is going to be hemmed. So there's not going to be any raw edges other than the curve of the pocket pieces. It's fine. For my waistbands, because this is a thick and heavy fabric, I have opted to do a wide waistband, and I'm going to interface it with a little more heavy-duty interfacing than I normally use. I actually don't remember where this came from. I think someone gave it to my mom. It's like a whole roll of this old-fashioned style of interfacing. I think it's a synthetic horsehair. It feels to me like that's what it's trying to do. So these weft fibers, I think, are supposed to be the horsehair. They're kind of plasticky. And then the warp is like a coarse linen, maybe? Not sure. Anyway, that's not important. The point is I'm going to use it to interface my waistband. And also I need to recut the front waistband because I did not center it on one of the stripes, and since the front of the skirt will have a stripe running directly down the center, I want to line this up with that stripe, so I'm gonna need a new one.
I considered doing either a facing or a bias binding on the hem, but I didn't have anything in my stash that worked with the colors of the skirt. So I decided to just turn up the hem twice at 1/4 inch. The cotton flannel behaved really well for this, just folding it over by hand as it went under the presser foot, with no significant puckering or stretching. Honestly, this fabric was a dream to work with, which is good because a circle skirt means a long hem.
Okay, I made myself wait to film the reveal until I had actually finished the hem and all the fastenings on this skirt. So it's now done. And it's exactly what I wanted. Oh, it's so fun. It's cozy, it's classy, it's comfy, it's adorable. I should be showing it to you more. I love it. Oh, I love it so much. If I had to be nitpicky about one thing, nope, there's nothing. It's perfect. I love it so much. I absolutely no notes. It is exactly what I wanted. It's plaid, it's blue, it's swooshy. And it does feel like wearing a blanket in the best way. Oh, I love it. Okay, gonna get my tripod so I can twirl. You gotta twirl. I don't even have room. Yes. And the pockets are enormous. They go so deep, and I also made them wide enough that when I put my phone in, it can lay horizontally, like that. Instead of sitting like this and like poking out the top, it's all the way down here. This is where it lays. Oh, I love it. I gotta make all my pockets this big. These are fantastic. Yay! I'm really happy with the pattern matching on the waistband, and I also like how in the back I did not match it up with a stripe intentionally, and that way it's very easy to tell when I'm putting it on which is the front and which is the back. I gotta take this puppy outside, which I'm going to do tomorrow. We're gonna take the kids to a pumpkin patch, and this is a perfect pumpkin patch fall skirt. And now I really want to finish the cream rayon blouse to wear with it. I can just picture wearing that blouse with those amazing sleeves with this skirt specifically, and I've been picturing that for weeks. And I need it to happen, and I need it to happen tomorrow. So wish me luck that I can finish the blouse tonight. I still need to attach the sleeves and the collar and buttons and buttonholes on the sleeves. Here we go. Okay, I've attached the collar. I really like how that's looking. And I need to hand tack the facing along the inside neck edge. And I've also started on the sleeves. There's a little slash that is faced, which will become the cuff opening. So this piece also needs to get turned under and slip stitched on the inside. So I'm going to go in the house and do that, hang out with my husband a little bit, watch some TV, and take out my contacts because my eyes are getting very dry. And then I will come back and work on the rest of the sleeves. Well, here's where we're at with the blouse. I really like the collar. It's looking very 70s to me, but in a good way. It's very interesting that there's only 3 buttons. I've already done the buttonholes, I just haven't opened them yet, so I have pinned where each of the buttons will fasten. And it's just fully open below the waist, which I find very interesting, but it will be tucked in, so it doesn't really matter. Once again, the darts are doing their own thing. I really should have moved them before I sewed the whole thing together and did the flat felt seams and everything, but I did not, and don't really feel like fixing it at this point. They kind of get lost in the wrinkles, which it's not supposed to have, but we're making do. I'll show you the back. This is what that's doing. So adding in that extra panel definitely did help. I can actually wear it and button it without straining too badly. I think I'm going to like it a lot better when I get the sleeves on, because once again the sleeves were the entire point. I do really like the collar. And I also discovered by ironing it with too hot of heat that there is probably some synthetic percentage in the fiber. I'm not sure what, but anyway, I do really like this fabric. Okay, onward. Sleeves. Making sleeves after midnight. What can go wrong? Okay, I'm calling it. It's 1 a.m. and I'm not going to finish this blouse tonight. I could stay up and continue sewing, but already my workmanship is getting sloppy. And I do not care enough to fix it, but it's only going to get worse from here. I do have 2 sleeves. Hooray. I have checked, double checked, triple checked that they are a right and a left sleeve, so that's good. I have at least done that properly. So I have the little slits for the cuff opening in the right places. I'm very tired and I'm gonna go to bed. So I will not have this blouse for pumpkin patch wearing tomorrow. I'm still gonna wear the skirt, and obviously I've taken the time to curl my hair, so we're gonna look cute anyway. And I will probably throw some footage in as a bonus. So see you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. There will not be a vlog for November because I stopped sewing entirely for the whole month. And I haven't really started up again, so I'm not sure there will be a December vlog either. I will probably come back at the beginning of January and give you an update on where I'm at. So look for that, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Why won't you focus on my face? There we go. Are you focusing on the pattern? No, you're not. There we go. Apparently my neighbor's going to drive away at some point.